All right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jeffrey Pickett. I'm the community outreach strategist for the district, and I want to welcome you and thank you for attending this back to school Zoom session that we're having with our families. Just to give you some brief updates, I'm going to be turning it over in a minute to our superintendent of schools, Dr. Joel Boyd, who will be providing you with some key updates as we get this school year started. I just want to remind everybody that this is a quick 10 to 15 minute update that we'll be having. Kind of think about it being like those press conferences that the governor holds, where he has some daily updates to provide to the citizens of the Commonwealth. So we're going to be doing something kind of similar just to keep you apprised of what's going on. You can ask some questions in either the Q&A or the chat section of this webinar. It won't necessarily be answered tonight because, again, we're limited to 10 to 15 minutes, but it will be helpful for us to gather what the community wants to know, and we can address those topics in future sessions that we have. So with that being said, I'd like to turn things over to our superintendent, Dr. Joel Boyd.
Thank you. And welcome community members, welcome families and students if you're participating for the update. Looking forward to sharing with you tonight's update. I want to thank you for all of your patience and flexibility as we've started. Some students have started in person. It was great to see our kindergartners and our pre-kindergartners. Starting last week, we had several schools that got up and going with the 80 Day, the LeBlanc, the Laura Lee, as well as students across the district that are in our substantially separate programs. It was exciting to see students in person again, and my understanding across the board is that students were excited to get back, our teachers were excited to get back. It was also exciting to see our remote learning kick off. Our teachers working extremely hard to make sure that our remote learning environment approximates the environment in person, making sure that our students are engaged. And I had a chance to meet students in those remote environments, say hello from the teacher's laptop to our students. An interesting experience, not necessarily the face-to-face instruction, but it approximates it. And we're working to do our best within this environment to make sure that we can support all of you as families and as students to make sure that we can make education as meaningful, as rewarding, as is possible within this environment that's dictated by COVID-19. So thank you, families, for your partnership in this effort. And thank you, teachers, if you're on this call, for all of your hard work to make this start to school as meaningful and as rewarding as it could be for students. Jeffrey, if we could, let's start that presentation. I think today's presentation, I want to be able to update you on a couple of things. We did receive our air purifiers, as you may have noticed from the letter out to families yesterday. Our air purifiers were an important part of our safety protocol. Families, we made a commitment to you that we would follow the strictest guidelines from the most reputable sources in opening our schools to in-person instruction, given all of the variables related to the coronavirus. And we've held to that commitment. It was a hard decision. We didn't take it lightly in shifting to remote learning when we did, but we felt it was the right decision based on the commitments we made to you. And we know it was the right decision based on the needs of our community for our young people based on those commitments that we had made previously. And so thank you, families, for your flexibility and your patience through that process. So we are pleased to report 650 air purifiers were delivered early Monday morning. They're being installed in schools. And of course, that means that we are able to move forward with our plan for in-person learning. I know that the late announcement 48 hours before created some extraordinary disappointment, certainly disappointment for me and disruption. But again, we think it's really important that we hold to our commitments, particularly our commitments to safety within this environment, and ensure that our community has confidence in the decisions that we're making and that we're going to stand up for those decisions that we have committed to. So our students who are assigned in-person seats through the lottery will be able to report for the first day of in-person instruction on Monday, September 28th. Students, if you're in grades 10 through 12 at Lowell High School, remember that'll be an individualized conversation. Your school will be reaching out to you with what that looks like. That was a different decision point related to staffing at the grades 10 through 12 at Lowell High School. But everyone else throughout the district, you can get excited about that return to in-person on Monday, September 28th. We're looking forward to seeing you. All students who have already started in-person instruction, of course, will continue to do so. And all students who were originally assigned to remote learning will continue with remote learning as planned. Approximately 25% of our students on Monday will be in person, and 75% will be learning remotely. And we're continuing to make sure we can monitor both environments, that we learn from it, continue to improve upon it. And again, our teachers are doing an incredible job. And families, thank you for your partnership. This truly is a partnership between home and school to make this happen. None of us certainly expected to be here for the first day of school back in March when we closed school, but as we started to learn about this, that this was a possibility, we've been planning ever since, even before the end of last year, and we feel prepared for any scenario that COVID might throw our way, as you could see with the preparation for shifting to remote when that's necessitated. So what are these air purifiers? So you may have noticed that the CDC even has updated its recommendations around the use of air purifiers. Ventilation, air quality, extremely important precaution in these days of COVID-19. So you can see it in the corner there, that little black box, that's the air purifier that brings air in, filters it, and makes sure that there's an added supplement to the internal ventilation system within the school. You can see a couple more pictures, a couple of different air purifiers here. You can also get a glimpse of our socially distanced and all the other protocols that were in place here with this classroom. This teacher, a second grade teacher, set up her desks as little Jeeps here to prepare for our students. So you can see our classrooms are prepared and ready. We're looking forward to our young people, and these are more pictures of our air purifiers that are being deployed across the district to make sure, again, that we can ensure the safety of our entire community. We know that nothing we do will completely eliminate risk. There are going to be positive tests. The steps we're taking here is to minimize the likelihood of spread, to make sure that if a positive test comes within our community, the likelihood that that would create a surge within our broader community, the likelihood that any other family would be impacted by that is mitigated, is minimized. Certainly, we understand the severity of this virus, and we want to make sure that every student, every family, every staff member in our schools is as safe can be. Our commitment is to make sure that our school environments are as safe or safer than any public environment that your children will be entering. So here's an important set of data to look at, because not only is it about the safety precautions in our schools, but it's also monitoring the transmission of COVID-19 throughout the community. So there are two data points that we monitor, and both data points are extremely important. The top one's a little bit easier to understand, so let me point to that one, and it's upticking slightly over the last few weeks, but you can see actually it's an average of 14 days, so over the last measures. That's the percent positivity. That's the percent of individuals within the community who are tested positive of the individuals who tested. The threshold that's used there is a 5% positivity rate threshold. That's the threshold used by Johns Hopkins University to determine whether in-person learning really should be a viable option within the community. And we're holding to the 5% threshold. You can see even with the slight upticks of late that we are monitoring closely, that we're still less than 2%. Less than 2% positivity rate tells us that it's safe for in-person learning. Now the bottom set of indicators, those are from the state's dashboard that you may have heard was released by the governor mid-August. And we're still learning about this dashboard. When the dashboard was released, it was around school planning for opening. And if you recall, there were three scenarios: in-person, remote, or hybrid. Every district had to be planful for those three scenarios. And when the dashboard was released, it was released with a message about assisting school committees in making determinations of their opening model. And the decision points were, if you're red, every district that was red was just starting the year with remote is what it seemed to be happening. And the governor said, if you're red, you should consider remote. If you're green, he wouldn't understand why you would consider a start to remote. We were green at that point. We've been trending up to yellow. Flip the next slide. So this is an important one. This just came out, further direction from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education about how you use that dashboard after you've already started your school opening model. And this is a bit different. So our school committee will be taking up this conversation of how we continue to use that dashboard going forward. But what the commissioner is saying here is, and you can see in the bold, it's critically important that school districts do not make decisions based on a single report from the Department of Public Health. And the commissioner is saying he recommends that school districts wait for color changes in either directions in 3 consecutive weekly reports before considering a change to an instructional model. Also, the commissioner is suggesting that in addition to the color-coded metric, that districts work with their local board of health. So we've been doing that, collaborating with the local board of health. And even though we're seeing an uptick, the local board of health is here, and our city manager is not assessing that there's a risk for spread within our schools, how that data is looking. We're making sure that we continue to collaborate across. And we'll be talking with the school committee about how do we use those data points, because one thing we learned in the shift from in-person to remote is that while our district's prepared to do that and our teachers are prepared to do that, as the safety protocols, as the health data necessitates, a quick switch like that, like we did previously at 48 hours, that's just not enough notice for families to adjust, families to prepare, and the amount of disruption that creates really has to be taken seriously, has to be necessitated by the prevailing health data if we're gonna make that type of shift. Again, we're gonna have positive tests, we're gonna have the need for quarantine, those types of immediate shifts might be required. Here with this dashboard, it may necessitate that, it may not, as we're looking at that data in collaboration with the Board of Health, in collaboration with the local health department, and also looking at other health data. So Jeffrey, if you can switch back to the last slide, I'm sorry, the one that showed the data points.
Sure.
So we are taking this, we're monitoring this data closely. We're gonna make sure that we make best decisions, again, in collaboration with the local health experts, so that we can make best decisions for you as families, for our students, for our staff, monitoring the positivity rate as well as the color-coded dashboard from the state. And as we get continued guidance from the state on how we manage that, we're gonna make sure that we continue to analyze that, to assess that. So I wanna share with you that data again, and then we'll get updates on the dashboard each Wednesday. We get an update on the dashboard, so we'll get another update. I think the important points here are on every safety precaution we followed. We're ready to bring back in-person learning. Air purifiers are deployed, are being deployed. We wanted to give families enough notice to prepare, and on the back end as well, if we end up having to shift to remote again, we wanna make sure that we continue to give you enough notice to prepare, allow our teachers to prepare, and to make sure that we really look at things holistically, fully understand them, and make sure that we're making best decisions, again, with safety being our top priority. Our full commitment is to making sure that every decision we make, while we know in-person instruction is extremely valuable, high demand, necessary for many of our learners, we've got to make those decisions based on the prevailing health conditions within the community and also in managing our safety protocols. So I've gotten a lot of questions before about these upticks in the numbers and what does that mean. That's what it means when people are saying the upticks. You can see the numbers climbing. We'll continue to work in collaboration with the local health experts. And again, if you look at the positivity rate, which I think is a little bit easier to understand, it's a little bit more well-known across the country number that you might be hearing if you're watching the news, for instance. That threshold's 5%. We're significantly below it. The color-coded dashboards, understanding if they're clusters, understanding where the numbers are coming from and what they mean in terms of impact on our schools. And we're working to analyze those, and we will work across with the health department to make sure we discuss that going forward. We're gonna have that discussion with the school committee tomorrow about how we wanna utilize that dashboard going forward. Thank you, Jeffrey, appreciate you. Can we show some of those pictures again?
Sure.
All right, so you can see here again, might be a small item, but a very valuable item in terms of making sure that we can ensure that every precaution is taken in our schools. Thank you. Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you, community members. We're hitting the time. We're gonna try to do this regularly. You're gonna get different updates going forward each day. We'll provide updates with you Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, updates for you. And we look forward to you joining us, and please continue to reach out, continue to ask questions. We look forward to seeing even more of our students returning to in-person on Monday, and we look forward to continuing to improve our remote learning model each and every day. Thank you, families.